Hello. On this video, I wanted to examine some naturally occurring perennial polycultures. First, let me break down what a perennial polyculture is. It's a perennial is a plant that lives for 3 years or more, and polyculture is groups of plants growing together that don't inhibit each other's growth, but fill niches that the other plant needs. So we're here right by the railroad tracks, and I take walks out here pretty often, and I found yams growing wild, the same type of yam, a different variety, but the same type of yam that I have growing in my garden bed from my last video, Dioscorea alata. And if you look around, it's growing kind of all over the place, up in the trees and stuff. But I wanted to hone in on this tree in particular as a polyculture. This yam growing specifically on a palm. This is probably a native palm or an escaped ornamental. I don't really know how to identify palms well, but palms are a very multi-purpose perennial. There's lots of edible types of palm. There's a type called jelly palm or pindo palm that produces a nice hand fruit. In some places of the world, the leaves, the fronds, the palm leaves are highly useful for weaving and making hats and baskets and all sorts of things. The core of the palm can sometimes be used for food. All sorts of different materials are made out of palms. Certain types can be pressed for oils. So yeah, palms in general are very multi-purpose. So this specific palm, I don't know what its uses are, but if you were to replicate this polyculture, you could use an edible palm or another useful type that you wanted. And second is the yam growing up the palm. This is the Dioscorea alata that I said. It's growing all the way to the top, but you can tell it's not killing the palm or really even hurting it because the leaves are all still green, and the plant's doing all right. So this yam is having its needs met by climbing up high and gathering sunlight, and then down here at the base of the plant, underground, there's big tubers that could be 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 pounds, depending on how many years old the plant is. So in a natural permaculture, perennial polyculture system, we could replicate this with either similar types of plants, or with this exact yam in a different palm, or you could even use a native palm. But it's just showing that these plants can really yield more on the same space if they're planted together rather than apart. Where if I were to just plant this yam, I would have to build a trellis and do all this, where if I just allow it to climb a palm that I'm also getting food off of, I'm getting fruit from above and I'm getting a tuber below, and it's really just better all around. I wanted to show how to identify this yam. There's another type of yam that's naturalized around here that's not edible, called air potato, but there are edible varieties. But here we have 2 leaves coming out of the stem and a square shape on the stem. Those are the 2 defining factors. 2 leaves. The air potato would have a leaf here, then here, then here, then here, like a staircase. These are coming out together. So that's Dioscorea alata. And you can see this stem. This is a very old plant. I've never actually seen a stem like that. And right here, it's starting to make a bulb. And you can take that bulb and plant it and have another plant. We could come over here. This is just a little space. It's kind of gone wild behind a warehouse, but there's another cool polyculture over here. This is a mimosa tree that also has the yam growing on it, which both the mimosa tree and the yam are considered invasive species to some people. I think that something like this yam with this much food potential, yeah, save that for another day. But the mimosa species fixes nitrogen. So it has bacteria that live on the roots that pull nitrogen out of the air into the soil. When the roots die off, which they are constantly dying and regrowing and dying and regrowing, that nitrogen becomes available to other plants around the base of the mimosa tree. So this yam's growing right at the base of the tree, and it's getting nitrogen from the tree, and it's growing up it as a trellis. Both plants are alive and green. The mimosas look fine. The yam looks fine. So these plants are working together. They're not really harming each other. They both, I mean, the yam doesn't really benefit the mimosa at all, but the mimosa is working for the yam by fixing nitrogen, and the mimosa is definitely not being hurt. So these are more species that could be put to use in a perennial polyculture. The mimosa will get quite large, which is fine. You could also use the mimosa or similar nitrogen fixing trees to grow the edible air potato that I was talking about a minute ago. One like this, I was thinking you could probably take a rope and bend it over and tie it to a brick or something, leave it bent over for about a year until it takes a slanted shape, or maybe prune it in a certain way, let the air potato grow on it, and then you can come right under and harvest like you're picking apples off of a tree, and you get a starchy potato. But more to come on that plant probably. But yeah, just two awesome polycultures that are happening without any aid, and producing food, and could be producing more food if the species were selected. There's probably a nitrogen fixing tree we could replace that would produce pods as a food source, as well as trellis and fix nitrogen for the yam. So we take this, what nature's doing already, and we can kind of substitute some plants and really produce a lot more food on the same amount of space if we just think like nature's thinking. So that's all.